Rebuilding life from rock bottom is something a local mom, Julia Krispeal, knows too much about. Her life came to a screeching halt when her husband was diagnosed with ALS, and what followed was a 6.5-year struggle with the disease until he passed away last summer. All of a sudden, she was a widow, a mom of 2 young children, thrust into the role of sole provider. In the past 9 months, she has learned to face these challenges head on, and we are lucky enough to have her with us here to talk about her personal story of survival. Julia, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, I want to talk, first of all, before we go into your advice, how you faced these big challenges. To go back a few years ago when you got that news from the doctor.
Sure. So in 2015, life was perfect in my eyes. We had a fairy tale lifestyle. We had a 3 and 1-year-old at the time.
Wow.
My husband had just turned 40 years old. We celebrated a nice surprise birthday party for him. Life was great. And he started a month later feeling symptoms that we couldn't figure out. He started getting weak in his right hand, and then started feeling muscle twitches, and then things progressed from there. And that's when the spiral just continued to go forward. We were traveling around the country to get a diagnosis. Nobody could figure it out because ALS, unfortunately, takes a while to really hone in on and get a diagnosis for. We ultimately, it took 9 months. We ended up going to Mayo Clinic, and that's where we got the final diagnosis there.
You've been through so much. Your boys have been through so much. How did you find your way out of that brokenness?
Having a strong mindset. Keeping the power of myself for my family alive, to make sure that I was able to hold everything together and never let go of the strength that my husband always portrayed and lived those 6.5 years with.
Did he tell you that before he died? Like, you need to,
He did.
You need to be strong. Did you share those conversations together?
Yeah, he would send messages. Believe it or not, he had an eye-gazing computer, and through that computer, he relayed many different messages. That was his only means of communication, because with ALS, unfortunately, it robs you of everything.
Sure.
It takes your speaking ability, your ability to breathe on your own, eat on your own, and it actually, that's pretty much how it went down.
You give people advice now for how to rebuild and how to rebuild from rock bottom. And the first thing you say, it sounds simple, but it's really powerful. You talk about get moving.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes. So get moving to me is waking up every day with gratitude, finding the strength to get out of bed, even in your most difficult circumstances, no matter what you're going through. It could be death, divorce, any type of loss, realistically, and just making movements, getting outside, getting fresh air, going for a walk with a friend, just having a conversation. Those little things mean so much, and they actually can change your entire mindset and shift from a low point to a higher place.
And I'm sure you had so many and still continue to have some of those from time to time. You also say, though, it's so important to take care of yourself. You had a husband, you were trying to help 2 young boys, I'm sure other family. How did you do that? How did you take care of yourself at the same time? You say it's non-negotiable.
So for the first few years during the diagnosis and while he was sick, I realized that I had to hold it together, but it was hard in the beginning.
Sure.
And I had a pivot moment where I looked in the mirror for a week straight and I said, I don't know who I am. I had no idea who I was. I couldn't recognize where I was going. I was confused. It was very difficult. The whole journey kind of leaves you very foggy and uncertain and scared, of course.
Of course.
And I had to pivot into being the sole breadwinner, taking care of now my terminally ill husband, as well as 2 young babies. They were only 3 and 1 when he was diagnosed. And that took a lot of strength. But every single day I got up and I made sure that I lived in the moment, and I tried to do everything I personally could to get through the day, even if it was at the bare minimum.
I mean, people, it's unimaginable what you've been through. You did live by a mantra, though: choose what you consume. What does that mean to you?
So choose the environment that you surround yourself with, the energy you surround yourself with, the people. They could be friends, family, coworkers, anything as minimal as a podcast that you're listening to. Consume the positive energy. I always found that if I started to bring toxic energy around me or listen to something that was negative, it actually did the opposite for me, where it put me into more of a into a more depressed state. And it wasn't helpful, because it wasn't helpful to my husband, who was fighting a disease in which he didn't even want to pass away from. He wanted to fight and beat the odds. He wanted to be that #1 guy that made it through.
Survived.
And for my children too, to see the strength and grow up realizing that there's more that we can do with our lives.
Well, they're seeing your strength now. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
It's unimaginable what you have been through. I see your 2 young boys over there behind us who have to be very proud, and I'm sure your husband would be too.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.